And we're back. So, relationship with God, by way of review, provides some things for us. First, it provides an open door policy to God. That's what a relationship with God provides. The second thing that we talked about is that relationship with God, it provides an avenue of fellowship with God. What a joy it is that we can have fellowship with God. And then last but not least, number 3, it provides a way to find forgiveness from God. It provides a way to find forgiveness from God. So often we use 1 John 1:9 as a way to refresh and remind us of God's grace. 1 John 1:9, of course, we read it. Most of you know it by memory. That we confess our sins, He is faithful and just to forgive us our sins and to cleanse us from all unrighteousness. That verse was not written for non-believers. It was written for believers. And the reason why it was written to believers is because you and I as believers, we're not perfect. We haven't arrived yet. We're not sinlessly perfect. Now, we choose to sin less, even though we're not sinless. We choose to walk by faith and not by sight, and that's always a choice. Every day when I get up in the morning, I have a choice. Am I going to live for God or ignore Him and just do whatever comes natural? It's not a natural thing to every day seek to live for God. That's a supernatural thing that occurs only when I meet Christ at the crossroad of surrender every morning and say, God, here's my life. Help me to be the kind of person that I ought to be, instead of the kind of person that at times I am sinful and self-centered. And so when that happens, then the Spirit of God, that is when we submit to God first thing in the morning, then the Spirit of God has the wherewithal whereby He can use us and He can help us to live the kind of lives that we ought to live. As with all relationships, forgiveness is one of the key elements and foundations that keep relationships together, healthy, productive, and a positive influence in our godless world. So it's one of the things that is kind of crucial, because in relationships at times things happen, things are said, whereby feelings are hurt, and where there might be a misunderstanding. And so therefore God has provided for us this incredible verse to confess our sins so that we might find forgiveness from one another and from God. There are 3 things that, as we conclude, that are important for us to understand as we consider the importance of forgiveness from God. Here's the first thing. Relationship with God offers a way out of the darkness. Relationship with God offers a way out of the darkness. It's not by accident that the Apostle John uses words regarding light and darkness. Why did he do that? Because the darkness he's referring to is that which is evil, that which is wrong, that which is not light. And let's face it, because you and I are still sinners saved by grace, sometimes we do things that are dark, that are wrong, that are evil, that are despicable, that are contrary to what we ought to be doing and saying as those who are members of the family of God. So what God does is He offers a way out of the darkness. But that always means a choice. Notice what it says in 1 John 1:9, if we confess our sins. It starts with if. It doesn't say that God makes us confess sin and then we find forgiveness. No, if. And the word if there is clear, whereby it indicates it's a choice. If we choose to go to God and say, God, help me because I am thinking wrong, I am speaking wrong, I am doing wrong, and I need your help. If we confess our sin, and so we go to God and say, God, I'm sorry, I messed up, I'm doing things, saying things, reacting in ways I shouldn't be, and please help me to change that. And only God can do that. So our relationship with God offers us a way out of the darkness. There's a second thing. Relationship with God offers us a way to walk in the light. A way to walk in the light. How do you do that? How do you walk in the light? Well, it's really not that difficult. When I make these home videos for our messages, I do it in our basement. My office is in the basement of our house. But in order for me to go down here and be able to maneuver without stumbling over things, I need to turn on the basement light. If I don't do that, it could be a real problem. I'll stumble and fall and, I'll probably hurt myself. Light is kind of an important thing. Light does something. It exposes what is there. Light makes clear the reality of what is, as compared to when it's dark, I don't see it, and I will miss it, and I will overlook it. And light also, as we consider what the text says here, has to do with recognizing it's something that comes from God. As it says in the text, John says, God is light, and in him is no darkness. So when you walk by faith and you submit your life to him and you confess your sin to him, something wonderful happens within you. The light comes on, and the darkness is evaded. The darkness disappears. The sin is forgiven. And you have then the ability and the wherewithal to be able to do what is right and to do that which brings light and joy to others. There's a third thing that we find, that's this. Relationship with God offers a way to confess sin. To confess sin. There ought not to be a day that goes by, a week that goes by, a month that goes by in which we are not confessing sin. Because let's face it, every day there's something that we say and do that we shouldn't have done. So it ought to be a regular part of our lives. You see, when we confess, something happens. The darkness is overcome by the light. You don't confess, and the darkness continues, and you continue stumbling as if there's no light, like walking in a basement with the lights off. But when you confess sin, something wonderful happens. He then clearly shows you the way, and you're apt to then get a perspective, God's perspective, to do that which is right. The principle is clear. Our relationship with God provides a way to find forgiveness from God in order to live life free of guilt and shame. Let me close by just meddling for just a moment. I don't know what your life is like or what's going on in your life today, but if for some reason something isn't right, your relationship with him isn't right, if that's true, it's going to affect your relationship with people. And you know what's really going on. If your relationship with people isn't right, it's probably has something to do with the fact that your relationship with God might have been affected because it's not right. So you need to start there first, get right with God, and then get right with those that you have a misunderstanding with, or those that you may have hurt, so that you can be free of guilt and free of all that which sin plagues us with. Well, may I just encourage you with those words. If you can come out and worship with us Sunday morning at 10:30, bring a lawn chair. Some people sat outside as we sat in lawn chairs. Others were in their cars, and we had a great time of fellowship. May God richly bless you, and look forward to either seeing you on YouTube or seeing you at church in our drive in worship. God bless you all. Bye for now.